just don't think, I feel like I have actual family values. You know,
Yeah.
my actual family values will not cut your grandmother off from Social Security.
Exactly. Well, and I think that's what we've kind of gotten away from. It's the basics. It's, you know, taking care of ourselves, taking care of our family, loving the people around us, you know, and thinking about somebody other than ourselves, not being so self-centered. And I think that's a big portion of what the whole election was really about, was someone who was so extremely self-centered that it appealed to other people who were self-centered, so it brought all this stuff up to the surface. I mean, it's not like that stuff was ever not there. It was always there. It had always been there. I mean, laws were passed 50 years ago doesn't mean people's emotions went away. But
You'd think they'd start dealing with it, though, at an individual level.
well, and that's the thing. Critically thinking and rational people do work on it on a daily basis. I am living proof of that. But there's a lot of people who won't even look at it until it slaps them in the face with like a 2x. I like to think of it as a 2x4 moment, and that's what I think the whole election really was, a 2x4 moment. You know,
Sledgehammer.
Yeah. Some people are going to go this way. Some people are going to go that way. It's going to be a choice. I think something better is going to come out of it. It might be tougher for a few years, but I think there's a certain generation that knows positive change is happening, and they know it's coming, and they just can't. They can't stand that. You know, that there's gay people, and that there's black people, and there's people that can't understand it's not just all whites anymore. You know.
Yeah, I was going to say, staying on the political thing, and then I actually had a question about the book.
Sure.
Was the commonality is like the thing, that's the thing to tie into, like the commonality with everybody that I've experienced with, like, if you listen to you can listen to someone complaining or talking about something. If you listen to the undertone of that, it can usually be an emotion or whatever, but if you're listening to the undertone of all the political stuff, it's usually that they want freedom. They want freedom, and they want the ability to live free, and their family to be safe, and them to feel safe. And then we get told these different information that these people are trying to take away our safety. You know, and that's really where the racism and the whatever, hating the left or the right comes, that they're trying to take away our rights.
Yeah.
And then everyone's fighting with each other. So it's really, but the commonality with everybody is there, that they want freedom and they want their family to be good. They really have a family value. But then we get sold upriver or downriver that someone's trying to take that away from us. When actually they just want the same thing, and they're sold that you're trying to take it away from them.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what
it's one of those vicious cycles that just keeps repeating itself. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and with the book, I was curious, because I'm always curious about research, how you, I guess for yourself personally, just anything talking about research maybe you did on the book, or maybe you didn't do research, or.
Well, I mean, I didn't do
you enjoyed about it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do traditional research a lot of people would do for books, just straight reading and going places. And I mean, it basically just comes from my daily life, stuff that I pay attention to, stuff that I've learned throughout my life, and just stuff that keeps coming up. I'll get a skeleton of a story idea in my head, and just the bare minimum, and filling in the blanks is kind of the fun part when I go to write. But I don't know. It always fascinates me, because in the end it's about opening up. It's about opening up part of yourself that might be a little scary. That after you produce some writing, when you really feel you're open and you really feel that passion just kind of easing out, it's an incredible feeling, and it just that's how I feel I'm on the right path. But I mean, as far as that, I try to pay attention and be open as often as I can, whenever I have the opportunity to look at something piques my interest. I get the word, or I hear something, or I hear a word, or maybe a song, or maybe a blip of something somewhere, and it makes me just take 5 minutes to look at something on the computer or something. But I mean, as far as the Jewish and Israeli stuff, I've had that ever since I was a little kid. I've always kind of really wanted to put some strong words out about it.
Are other question is that I kept thinking while you were
Sure.
reading that is, they say write what you know.
Yeah.
And from good coffee to love to justice to connectedness to racism, Judaism, everywhere you say you're open-minded, like I'm just so curious how much of that is what you've learned, what you've already experienced, and writing what you know.
Sure. I mean, I like to think of myself as a very open person. Accepting. I don't care. In the end, I can. I don't care what somebody looks like or what they do. They could have green hair and purple skin and 4 feet and 3 toes and 1 eye for all I care.
That's my boy.
If they're a cool person, they're a cool person.
I did
Period.
good job.
Meet that person.
Yeah, right.
All right.
They would make me a very rich
Take good
man.
care.
Yeah. But no, it's because if someone's a jerk, they're a jerk, and that's it. All races, all ethnicities, all religions, all everything has some people within its subgroup that are jerks. It's part of the human condition. It's just, unfortunately, it's almost part of the balance, though. Because I think stuff like that will never fully disappear. It'll always be there, but it can be made a lot smaller and more insignificant. Because it's always got to be there for the balance. Because if that stuff was never there, and it was only, quote, the good stuff, we would lose sight of what the good stuff actually is. And then some of it would start trending backwards. And so that's where we gotta, it's where the give and take comes in, I guess.
You're right. And without Trump, there wouldn't be people protesting. There would be people coming alive and getting a voice.
Sure. Well, see, and that's the thing. Hopefully people would be protesting anyways. Because in the end, a lot of those issues would be there whether he was in there or not. Any good president is only good because they're pushed. I mean, even Obama said it. He was going to go whichever way whoever pushed him. He might have gone certain ways because a certain group pushed him hard enough. FDR went a certain way because people pushed him enough. Back when communists and socialists in this country actually had power. Like, they weren't looked at like some, kind of circus freak, if you will. But it's interesting. It's a constant learning experience. Life. And, hopefully one day we'll get it right. But then again, what's right? What's left? I think, and I think that's it's basically my goal with the books. The next book, everything's going to break down. There's going to be a lot of, it's going to be about the healthcare industry and socially engineering people. It's going to deal with racism and all of that. The book after that's going to be dealing with basically education, because after the society breaks down, you got to re-educate it, and help school people again. And then the 6th book basically is going to be about politics and rebuilding a political system. Because once people are educated the right way, then they're going to have to rebuild their whole politics. And then the last book is basically going to be wrapping it all together. People are going to get an idea of how good and how great and how possible everything can be to the hilt. But they'll also see how it can be taken away immediately by a choice. It can always go away by choice. You can always revert back to how bad and how ugly it was at any point. But it's how much we want it to stay. We have to keep putting in the effort. Maybe that's why I never, I've been in a couple protests. I've been out there before. But when I want to do something, I want it to have some effect. I mean, if I went out to protest on a daily basis, I would want to go out there and not stop until whatever problem was actually fixed. If that meant, quitting my job and living on the street and protesting outside of somewhere for 6 months in a row, maybe I would do that. But in the end, what's that going to solve? So I'm constantly looking for actual solutions and, trying to be a pragmatist and trying to see what works. But, I guess that's moving forward and learning, it's what makes life interesting, Yes.
But in the wake of the difficulty that the country is going through, aftermath, some of the wisest people that I've read, have shared, have had in common a call to whether you think you're in heaven or hell right now, depending on how you voted.
Right.
The point is, take action.
Yeah.
Take action for what you believe in. Don't let complacency and depression or disappointment stop you. And so I just want to applaud you in putting out, an effort for your creativity to manifest in these books and to share what's important to you, because every voice counts. And I believe, as I looked at some of the exit polls of people that did vote one way or the other, it was heartening to hear, is that underlying quite a large percent of people who voted for Trump was not so much that they were racist, as much as they were sick of not having a voice.
Yes.
Not being seen, not being heard, being kind of thrown under the bus with the manufacturing and other things that have changed in global, the globalization that kind of left them in the dust. And so there's something for us, like you said, it was a 2x4 moment.
Yeah.
That some of us really believed it was okay enough,
Which kind of brings me back to, because of that sentiment that was there, and not playing the too much of the what if game. That's why Bernie, I think, would have had a much better chance against Trump, because he picked up a lot of that same sentiment, but from the other side. He was leading in all the polls and everything, and it was interesting. I've told a few people this. I work at the hotel in Best Western in Arcata, and I was talking to this guest the other day. Very admittedly conservative guy. One of these guys that thought like the world would end if Hillary was elected. Kind of like how some people on the other side believe the world would end. So it was just interesting to see that dichotomy. So I'm talking to this guy, and I had this thought on the way to work. I was like, so would you feel that same way if it was Bernie? He goes, no. It took him 2 seconds to answer that question. And here's a guy who is a pretty much Jewish socialist. He calls himself a socialist. And here's a guy who's like super off the deep end of Trump. Saying that he would be okay with a socialist. Because he accepted some of that same anger. And so, I think that's where it's going. I mean, the DNC and everything else is kind of have to rebuild itself and, look and see why they lost. It was, I guess without getting too much into it, with how rigged or however whatnot had happened beforehand, but, the new generation, they don't, it's all the old culture war stuff. The new generation is all over that. They want to know about the jobs and getting screwed over and all of this. And that's why a lot of them went either for, Bernie or, I'm sure a lot of people ended up going for Hillary that might not have liked her, but they were so scared of Trump. But in the end, granted, Hillary would have been better than him. But what we were being sold was, vote for Hillary, could be scared of Trump. And all the people voting for Trump were like, vote for Trump, be scared of Hillary. That's no way to run a political system. Selling fear. That's exactly what we're not. It's like the opposite of what we're supposed to do. But hopefully, yes.
If all those people who disliked Trump and Clinton had voted for Dr. Jill Stein, we'd have a female president.
That's very true. That's very true. And it also would have been interesting if, Elizabeth Warren decided to run. Sometimes I ask myself, what would have happened with that? I mean, you can ask yourself what ifs forever, right? But,
Except that Dr. Jill Stein was a bona fide candidate.
Oh, yeah.
All the people who were discussed with the election, because they had the choice of two evils, if they'd all voted for Jill Stein.
Of course. Of course. I mean, obviously that would have been huge. I don't even think the Green Party is recognized in all 50 states.
48 of them have
Is it 48? Oh, okay, great. Because that's a lot more than it used to be, so they're gaining some
They
ground.
might have had the last two by the time of the election, but even if they didn't have those last two, there's still a possibility to write her in.
Oh, yeah.
So,
No, that's true.
That's
true.
It's one of those things. We'll all stop